Hey guys, welcome to Red Hot Ride Zone. We're entering the home stretch of the game, when you're like the last third of it, and this is where things start getting pretty crazy. Let me say right off the bat that this is one of my favorite fiery levels in any Sonic game. I say that because it is a fire level. There are like volcanic parts in it you'll see, but it's not typical. I mean, a lot of people frown on fire levels and whatnot being used in a lot of games because they're so generic and they're all trying to be so scary and it just gets boring after a while because they all look kind of the same. But this isn't like that, you know, even though it's like a fire-ish level, it's not generic, you know, it's not just like, fire and brimstone and red and hell and whatnot everywhere, blah. We're not even gonna see any lava or whatever for a while, I guess you can see a little bit in the background. Right now it's kind of like we're in this giant, just a really hot lake full of geysers and hot springs and whatnot. And I like the colors. It's not just, you know, red everywhere. It's not just hot colors. It's all these cool colors, you know. Some of them even kind of dull, but I think they all complement each other pretty well. I think the composition of all these colors together winds up making this zone very, very unique. It doesn't feel like a zone that I've already been to like 5 times in other Sonic games. And for that, I really appreciate this place. There's a lot of things I like about it. I think the backgrounds are really, really good. I love how they constantly move. I love how you can see like bits of light shining through the water, through the surface, and it just gives you a great sense of where you are. It almost makes it feel kind of 3D in a way, just because there's so much depth to the background, just because they handle this so well. And I love the haziness, pixeliness of it, because it looks like it's bubbling, you know, it looks like we're in a really hot place. Not so hot that Sonic is burning alive, but, you know, it's pretty good. Basically, I just like this zone because I like the identity that it has. I like that it's, you know, not just like every other fiery zone I've seen, you know, before. Anyway, another thing I love about it is the music. I love this soundtrack. I think it's spectacular. But this tune right here, it's not my favorite, but I do think it is one of the best. Like, it doesn't get me all riled up, but I think the way it's composed is just really swell. In fact, it sounds kind of like something that Michael Jackson would compose. It reminds me very much of music you'd hear in, like, Sonic 3, and, well, very much like music that Michael Jackson would make. You know, whether you think it's as good or not is debatable, but there's just something about a lot of the beats in this zone's music that really makes me think about it and his stuff. Anyway, this is a pretty cool part right here. Yeah, you gotta learn to, you know, roll along the outside of these giant balls, and Sonic just keeps going and going, kind of like those little ones in Scrap Brain. Oh, this purple enemy right here. I easily prefer this retooling of this guy over the red crabs that you find in Metropolis Zone. That enemy is so annoying, and this one's kind of annoying because he's constantly shooting at you, but he's a heck of a lot easier and a heck of a lot more fair than those other crabs. Anyway, we're getting deeper into the zone now. You can see the lava spilling everywhere and whatnot, but I still think it's cool. Like, so many fire levels try to look scary and try to top the hellishness of other ones. But sometimes it's nice to just see a place that's kind of peaceful, like this. Like, when I look at this place, I don't think that there's anything wrong with it. I don't think it's scary or whatever. This is just how it's supposed to be here. And it's beautiful. And I like it. And there's just so much going on here. This is just a really, really cool zone. Not my favorite, you know, Techno Tree is my favorite, but this is a pretty close, it is pretty close to that. There's actually a lot of the levels in this game that I think are just great. And how about that, we're already done with the first act. What was I going to say next? Oh yeah, sorry to say I will turn into Supersonic a couple times. Now this act is where things start to change a bit. Like, here is where it starts to feel more like the typical fire level you'd expect out of a video game, where everything is bright and hot and intense and crazy and hellish, and honestly I don't mind it. You know, I don't mind there being a little bit of that. If the entire zone was like that, I could understand people saying it was kind of generic. But I like the variety. I like that each act is different than the last act, and they mix it up. I mean, this doesn't feel like going through to the same 9 zones, like 3 times each. It, at times, really does feel that there's like 27 or like 30 levels. It's just crazy how much variety, how many places were packed into this game. Just so many good ideas, so many cool settings and whatnot. There's just a lot to like about this game. It's constantly changing things up. Anyway, this is a pretty cool place. I mean, I mean, I get it is the typical generic fiery place you'd expect in a video game, but we're not here too long. You know, it's only one act. I don't mind there being a little bit of this, you know? Everything in moderation. And for what it's worth, this does have some pretty cool creative ideas, such as, well, you'll see in a little bit when we get a fire shield. You can probably guess what I'm gonna do with it since I just touched lava. Yeah, you know, there's something different about this lava. It's not like the lava in Lava Reef, you know? It's almost... Oh, how about that? You can actually go inside it. I was trying to find the best word to describe it. It wasn't as thick as a lava from Lava Reef. That's it. That's the best way I can say it. So yeah, we're under the lava right now, as if we were underwater. And just like the bubble shield, the fire shield will not protect your rings when you're under the fire. When you're above the fire, lava, whatever, it'll work just like you'd expect a shield to, but when you're under the surface, it won't. Oh well. Anyway, here's a pretty cool gimmick for this one level. You use this, the ability to launch yourself through the air and bounce yourself off of these targets. And they're set at an angle, so it always throws you up a little bit. And honestly, I mean, it feels kind of like the homing attack. But I like that you still have some agency, you know? You're not flying at these things because you're automatically targeting them. You're flying at them at a certain angle that makes it convenient for you to bounce off of them. And it works for what it is. And, I don't know, I think the way they handled it is creative. If this kind of gimmick was seen all over the game, like if there were all these special places that you needed to make it to with a fire shield in order to get special goodies and whatnot, then it would kind of irk me. But again, it's just one of many, many ideas that we see throughout this game. You know, just something that makes this act stand out from the others. And, yeah, not much else to say. This is just a pretty cool zone. Oh, I love the music. There are lots of cool beats in this tune that are very reminiscent of, like, Sonic Adventure 2 in particular, I find. And, yeah, I turned to supersonic. I didn't realize this, but apparently being in a shield will not stop you from going super. Which, you know, is a nice design choice. You know, I can understand why Lake for Bird would do that to make things just more fun for the player. But this was the first time something like this had ever happened to me. I was expecting it to play just like the classic games, where if you were wearing a shield, you couldn't go super. You'd have to lose the shield. So I just used the fire shield's hurling, torpedoing ability, fireball ability, whatever you want to call it, and wham! Wound up turning into supersonic. Well, only for a little bit. Anyway, this soundtrack, it just gives me so many flashbacks to games like, you know, the adventure games and the classic games, Sonic CD, just all sorts of cool games from the past, and I just haven't heard anything with that kind of feel in ages. Anyway, here's Act 3. This is where things get kind of trippy, and again, I just love this music. I don't enjoy this track quite as much as, like, the first track, say, just because I don't think it has the same flow. But it's still pretty cool. You know, it gives this stage its identity. This tune is very relaxing. That's what I should be saying. It makes you just chill. It tells you, don't worry about getting to the end as quickly as possible. Just take your time and don't screw up. Which is very fitting considering the gimmick that we have in this stage. Now, when you touch these purple, whatever the frack they are, you suddenly become a bouncy ball. You cannot uncurl, you're just bouncing along, and you gotta be careful about what you land on. You will keep bouncing even if you get hurt, you will keep bouncing. And it's pretty annoying. When you pass through those purple gates, you become normal again. It's like being coated with flubber or something. And again, I'm glad that gimmicks like that only appear or you're only used for one act. Again, if these sorts of things were used for like an entire zone, then they would be annoying. But just using them sparingly here and there, like those targets down there we just saw, it's tolerable, it's okay. Like, I don't know. It's not as stupid as like actually having the homing attack in a 2D game. Anyway, to be honest, this gimmick here is just really, really, really frustrating. You have to get the hang of it. But the way these platforming sections here are designed, this is the point where the game actually does start... What the... This is the point where the game actually does start to slow down to a crawl, where you're just chugging along trying to get to the next part, like, come on, come on! What the is going on? But it's over before too long. You know, most Sonic acts only last a couple of minutes. I'm not gonna lie, this is a pretty frustrating act. I like this act, but there are plenty of things about it that I don't like. Hey. And like I said at the beginning of this whole Let's Play, this game isn't perfect. I do think it's really good. I do think that its good qualities make it enjoyable enough to sit through the more frustrating bits, but it's not perfect. There are bits that will make you scratch your head. There are questionable design choices. There are things that make it very, very flawed. Some things that you would never expect to see in a classic game. And even though they're creative, they're still kind of like, eh, whatever. But it's a good game, you know? On my first run through, I thought this was kind of crazy, kind of silly. But, I just need a little experience, I guess. I mean, it's much easier for me to play through this now. It's not because I've memorized the levels or whatever. I just feel more comfortable playing it now than I did the first time. I know that's not a very good defense of the game, but whatever. It's a good game. I just don't think it's an absolutely positively great game. It's just shy of greatness because some of these gimmicks don't work out for the best. But overall, it is a very good game. I do enjoy this game. I think it has plenty of replay value. It's pretty swell. But whatever, I should be saving such thoughts for the end of the Let's Play. For now, let's focus on this. And yeah, I turned to Supersonic again. You know, funny thing, first time I tried recording this zone, I wound up turning into Supersonic in the first act. Purely by accident, I swear. And, well, I lost that recording, so I had to start again. So, you know, I wound up going through all 3 of these acts again, and I didn't go super in the first one, but I went super in the other 2. So, I guess if things had gone a little differently, I'd just be constantly turning into Supersonic in this part, and it'd just be, yeah, whatever. I'm sorry I'm rambling more in this episode than I usually do. I try to make these videos informative. I try to always have something to talk about, but not to have it just be pointless and babble, you know, just jibber-jabber, but whatever. I keep saying whatever. Yeah, in some ways these sections are a little easier when you're playing as Supersonic, and in some ways a little more frustrating. On one hand, you're lighter, you know? There isn't so much resistance, there isn't so much weight, you're not being held down. But at the same time, you gotta be really careful not to overshoot a platform. You gotta, like, kind of struggle to control yourself. You know, that's just how Supersonic always plays. But anyway, pretty swell act, I guess. I mean, it is my least favorite out of all 3 acts. I mainly like it for the scenery, not so much the gimmick. Time for the next boss. This cutscene kind of confuses me in some ways because it's implied that some of the murals here were removed and may be seen in the Hidden Palace zone. But then you have a few others that we never see anywhere. And I do think it's really cool that they imply that the Angel Island once stood upon this pillar, this mountain, and it just sort of fell off or got detached. I like that we see a lot of the Death Egg here. We see it being launched in Sonic before the sequel. But you see, we got all these missing tapestries, and... Well, we'll find out what the last couple were in Sonic 3K. Although I'm not going to be doing a Let's Play of that. Just watch someone else's video of it. Anyway, something's wrong. Something's coming this way. But what? What can it be? Holy. Yeah, every other boss that Robotnik has... every other machine Robotnik has made that has a drill somewhere on it just can't compare to this thing. This is just this giant rocket tunnel worm thingy. All you gotta do is throw rocks at it, you know? If the rocks pass past the exhaust, then they'll be burning and you'll be able to damage the core, or whatever it is you gotta hit with them. If they're just normal, it just won't affect it at all. But as long as they're burning, as long as they're super hot, you'll be like melting that eyeball thing up there. And you just gotta be careful not to be hit by fireballs. This is way easier when you have like the flame shield. Oh gosh, just listen to that music. Listen to it. I've said it before, I'll say it again. This soundtrack is dope. This music is amazing. You wouldn't expect things like dubstep and rock and roll and whatnot to work in a classic Sonic game, but it does. As long as used in moderation, you know? I like that there's just so much variety in the soundtrack and the gameplay. It's just, you know, it's a spice of life. Blah, 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 blah. Back to the boss. Now this is basically like a revamped version of a boss we've already... How'd I get hurt? I had the fire shield. I guess I don't know what's going on anymore. We've seen this boss before a few times in other Sonic games, but this version of it actually is very, very hard, because you gotta be careful not to jump too early, when it's coming up. You gotta be careful not to wait too long, or you'll get hit by its fireballs. And when you're playing as Sonic, it's especially nerve-wracking, because you might get caught and not be able to, just keep bouncing on. You'll get a few extra hits in, but you'll almost certainly be hit yourself. And if you lose your rings, well, you're screwed. And when I was playing through this, I'm like, come on! Come on! I did get a game over here once, actually, but not when I was recording this, obviously. And that is Red Hot Ride Zone. Pretty swell zone. Yeah, I think as fire levels go, this is pretty swell. Just about as cool as a Lava Reef. But now, we've made it. We're at the foot of the mountain that ring is on. We're just about at the end of the game. This is like... Oh. I wish there were more cutscenes like this in Sonic games where we just see Tails being an innocent child and you can't help but, how can I stay mad at you? Anyway, next time we go to Parhelion Peak. Parhelion Peak, that's what it's called. See you later, guys.